So I wanted to profile this a while ago because this was the second, this is the second deck that I was thinking about taking to the Kingslayer 1K event for Overdress. But it just had certain bad matchups that I didn't feel comfortable playing. I didn't feel comfortable playing a deck that just couldn't beat another deck like outright. Like just had an inherently bad matchup against. And that matchup was Bastion. I play tested extensively against Bastion, and it's really hard to beat them because inherently you don't have like a hand to rush them in the early to try to swing tempo in your advantage, because you have to play very awkwardly because you need at least one counterblast a turn and they can very easily damage deny you. And generally their hand size, if they see Alden, of course, but they run that card at 4, so you shouldn't count on them not seeing Alden. But their hand size is like very tough and tanky to get through, and their swings are just so big. Like usually you could survive like one grade 4 turn of Bastion, but like not 2. So let's get into the list. First off, for the grade 3s, I was running 4 copies of, where can I put this? Like right here is fine? Yeah, I think right there is fine. I was running 4 copies of the end. I wasn't running any main deck copies of the original Overlord just because it didn't feel necessary in the deck. Like in my first build of the deck, I do have that on the channel, that I was running main deck copies of the Overlord, because my theory was that I could call it to rear guard and get a guaranteed swing on one of their front row rear guards. But I cut it out and favored a different engine that helps me just deck thin and do what this deck really needs, which is check triggers. Like you get 4 drive checks by turn 4, and it's just very important that you check like at least one critical trigger to put like some type of kill pressure on your opponent, because you are playing theoretically a turn behind. Because unless you went first, your Overlord turn is really not that sexy. It's really not that sexy. You could swing at their Vanguard if you just want to take cards out of their hand, but you are playing a turn behind, so you do have to play certain, like, slightly defensively, slightly tanky to make up for that fact. And for the 2s, we're maxing out on Nahalem. Nahalem is very important in this deck just because you build so much soul, and it's just very important for you to use that soul in I don't put this here. Put that there. To use that soul to something useful, like, which is giving your Vanguard power. Like the end is base 18. You Soul Blast 1 with Nahalem, that's 23. You have another Halem, that's 28 without Persona Red. So Nahalem is just a very key piece to this deck to get your Vanguard to swing a decent number that can at least swing over 1 defensive trigger. For the rest of the 2s, we are running the 4 Burning Horns. This is your consistency card of your deck / your secondary beater of the deck, because it gets +5 for every time that your Vanguard swings, and it searches your Overlord. Even though you're only running 1 Overlord in the deck, this is just very it's very crucial to your strategy. One thing that I do / warn if you are going to play this deck / pick up this deck in the future is that I always hard mulligan for the end. Even if I have a Burning Horn, like I'll keep maybe one Burning Horn because Burning Horn search isn't guaranteed, but I'll hard mulligan for the end, because if you do not see the end in this deck, you really just die because of how fast the format is. Like, you can't afford to stay on Dragonic Overlord. You have to get to the end as soon as possible, which is your turn 4. For the rest of the 2s, I'm running, I believe this card is Proliferate Burner Dragon, or Proliferate Dragon. This is one of your discard outlets. You are running 8. Ooh, it's still off center. I don't like that. Not off center, but like, it's cutting off. I'm sorry, guys. I'm just kind of anal like that. But I am maxing out on Proliferate Dragon. It is one of the new cards that was released for Overlord in Set 5. Again, it just buffs up any unit you want when you pitch it, and it goes to Soul, so it's food for your Nahalem, which is a very important piece in this deck. Which is, again, why you're running Nahalem at 4 copies. And before I get to this card, let me do this one. And then I'm running 4 copies of Togashi Rashi. This is another discard outlet for the deck. Again, you are pitching 1 to 2 cards every turn, so I just wanted to maximize on the cards that I get benefits from by discarding them. Even for your ride line, like I'll get it from not him because he has to be during the battle phase, but off of this I'll get benefits off of discarding it. So I just wanted to max out on those. And before we get to the final cards, 4 PGs. You could search this off your ride line. Again, 4 PGs are standard. There's really not much to talk about there. But I had 7 slots in the... Maxing out on all these cards, I had 7 slots in the deck that I could essentially play whatever I want. For a while, I was playing like 3 Overlords and 3 of this grade 1. That when the attack it boost hits, you Soul Blast 1 because this deck builds a ton of soul. You Soul Blast 1, retire it, and give another unit 10k to the end of turn. But it wasn't really doing much for me, just because your standard board is just either Nahalem or Burning Horn in the front row, and then your end. Like, you generally like don't have boosters, or like good boosters, and I didn't like that. So the quote-unquote engine I'm running in this deck is I'm running 3 of Madoka. This card is basically just a 10k booster / it gets its extra shield in hand. And then I was running 4 copies of Forktail. Now the reason why this Forktail, Madoka, and Togashi Rashi is technically an engine, because they all have stealth in their name. So all of these cards, which is 11 cards in total, can be searched off the top 7 by Forktail, which help build soul for your Nahalems, which helped deck thin so that you could see triggers. And this was working out pretty well. There wasn't anything really at the time that I thought I could run. I did try running the grade 2, what was it? Berserker Dragon? Yeah, Berserker Dragon. Just because it was a 15k by itself, no matter what. And it was a Counterblast 1 to pop. But again, this deck is very Counterblast heavy. Like, you're using 1 Counterblast on your turn 3. You're using 1 Counterblast off of your ride line. Like, this is a very Counterblast heavy deck. Like, it can be very easily damage denied. So I just didn't want that to happen to me. And the problem with the counter chargers currently in Dragon Empire, at least the generic ones, they require your Vanguard to hit, which most of the time, by turn 4, my Overlord was always getting blocked no matter what, because they were at 3 to 4 damage and they didn't want to take any chances. So I took not the proverbial chance of running this engine in the deck. And it's worked out for me so far. Like, this is really good behind your Nahalem, behind your Burning Horn, just because, again, it makes good numbers just because it's 8k and it deck thins your deck. And it gives you soul. Like, what else do you want? Moving on to the triggers, I run 4 regular heals. Again, this is like the same concept as the same concept I'm using with my PBO list. Is if my, or at least this is the concept that works for me. Like, if I'm not running fronts, I generally don't feel like I have the room to cut heals to run the new effect heals, because if the said situation for those effect heals become 25k shields doesn't arise, they're just 10k shields, and this deck has to run draw triggers and it has to run crits. So I didn't want to run like overall less amount of shield, so that's why we're running 4 copies of the regular heals. And then we are moving to 8 criticals. This deck needs it. Like, it is, like I said, it is very important that you check, that you, not just critical triggers, but like a trigger off of your 4 checks, because it just makes your Vanguard even scarier than what it already is, and it helps you close out the game. And then 3 draw triggers. You need the draws. You're discarding 1 to 2 cards every turn. It's just very important in the deck. And then 1 of the DRAGONIC Empire over trigger. There's really nothing much to say. Vanguard restand on top of what this deck already does. You could swing 100 million 3 times. You could swing 100 million 3 to 2 times, I believe. If the ruling on the once per turn auto abilities is still the same, you could swing 100 million 3 times. But that's basically the deck profile. Where I would say this deck is, I wouldn't put it very high. I would say it's like a low tier 2 playable. I wouldn't put it very low either. It's good at what it does. It's just slightly slow. Like, it can like build a very defensive hand, and just your offense is your Vanguard's restand. But like I said, there's just certain decks right now that it just can't beat because they farm so much hand, like Bastion, like Magnolia. I imagine I never got to the point of testing the Prison matchup, but I imagine the Prison matchup is very detrimental for this deck because you need Counterblast. Well, actually, you do build up a lot of soul, so maybe it's not too bad, but it'll be definitely one of those things where you have to beat them fast before they snowball into their grade 4s. But like, comment, subscribe. I'm going to have more profiles in the future and later.